It's getting close to league start time. Now tell me if you've heard this one before. Listen, kid, if you're not playing this meta build right here, the one that literally 99% of people are playing, if you're not playing that as your league starter, you are wasting your own time. You might as well just not even play at all. Might as well just go quit this game and play a baby game like Diablo 3 instead. There are a ton of people out there with very strong opinions on what you should be playing and what you should be doing. However, I believe that the choice is best made for yourself. And I know that a lot of people really do struggle with this choice. This is a question that I get insanely frequently around this time of year. Big Ducks, which build should I choose for League Start? Well, that's a question with a different answer for pretty much everybody. However, I'm going to give you the tools that you need and the info that you need to be able to make the correct decision. Hey guys, Big Ducks here, and welcome back to the channel. Now remember, if you're enjoying this style of content, make sure that you like this video so that YouTube knows to recommend you more of it. Also, over 75% of you are still not subscribed to this YouTube channel, so if you're enjoying my particular style of content, make sure that you subscribe so that these videos will show right up in your feed, and you can always change your mind later. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video. Now I do want to tell everyone that if you have a specific question about this build or some other thing, and you really need it answered, there are a few ways that you can get help. You can either join me at my Twitch stream over at twitch.tv/bigducks, and over there I'm pretty much live every single weekday, and I'll be live a lot more for the league start, so if you need a generic question answered immediately from your boy, that's the best place to do it. If I'm not online, or you just need help from somebody else, there is also my Discord that's linked down in the description below. You can join there. There's a ton of helpful people if I don't happen to be around, so make sure that you do one of those two things if you're looking for some specific help. Now, there is one thing before we go over any of the actual information on how to actually choose your build. There's one thing that I want to say. I really need to set some expectations here because I feel like the community gets this wrong a lot of the time. The most important thing about your league start is that you have fun. Now, different people are going to have fun in different ways. Just don't feel pressured by some random dude saying you need to play this build, or some other guy saying no, you need to play this build, or feeling like your choice is wrong. You choose whatever you think is best for yourself, and I'm going to teach you how to do it. So let's start with the first and most important thing, in my opinion, on what you should do to choose your own league start. And that is going to be setting goals for yourself and determining what build would be best for those goals. Now, there's a couple different scenarios. Are you looking to do bossing immediately? Are you looking to get up into really high tier maps, get those bosses down and focus on making currency through bossing? Or are you looking to just get a clear build and do something like Legion farming or something of that sort? Or are you a returning player who maybe just needs a simple build that's going to get him into maps and help him get more comfortable with the game again? Also, another thing you need to think about is, are you going to be maining one build only throughout the entire league, or are you someone that just wants to get to red maps and then jump over to a new build? These are all questions that you need to ask yourself, and the build that you choose is going to be different depending on which one of these you decide to focus on. Now, what I do want to say is that I do put out league start guides for a ton of builds, and I'm going to give you answers to all these questions in my league start guides. So I would say that you would want to look to one of those guides and see if those questions are answered by me, and that might help you a little bit with mine. I can't vouch for everybody else in the community, but I will be doing my best to give you some good ideas on what each build is capable of going into it. So make sure to set yourself those clear goals, like choose a boss that you want to kill. Maybe choose a type of currency that you want to go for, or an amount of currency that you want to go for. Maybe set yourself a goal of just actually getting to maps this time, if that's something that you haven't done in the past. Maybe it's killing Cirrus, maybe it's killing Maven, maybe it's something beyond that. But choose a goal and push towards that specific goal first, and then you can do whatever else you like afterwards. So the next thing that you need to think about is the league mechanic itself. This time around we've got Ultimatum, and what Ultimatum is mainly about is going to be small, enclosed areas where we're going to be focusing on killing a ton of enemies that are popping up. Now, something that GGG has told us is that within these small areas that you might see here, there's going to be scaling difficulty. So we're going to want builds that are very good at surviving. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that the amount, like the effective health pool that you have, is not always the most important when it comes to situations like this. There are also things like recovery that you should really be worrying about, making sure that you have enough damage to push through these enemies, and so on and so forth. Because as you can see here, there's going to be, you can choose like something that is more difficult, and you can accept the trial and increase your loot, or you can just kind of, be like, all right, well, I think I've pushed myself far enough. So these are the kinds of things that you need to think about when you're choosing your build. So are you going to choose a build that is able to push really deep into these, or are you going to say, maybe you want to go for a bossing build instead, and you're really not too worried about pushing into these ultimatums very deeply, and you're just going to take a couple rewards early on and be done with it. You're going to need a build that's tanky enough to be able to survive them, if that's something you want to do, or you can absolutely ignore the league mechanic completely and just push towards whatever it is you'd like. So make sure that you focus up on thinking about what, once again, your goals are going to be for the league. If the actual league mechanic itself is something that you really want to push, you should prepare yourself in a build that will be able to handle all the things that you want to do. So in my personal opinion with Ultimatum, I'm going to be focusing on a character that can take care of area control a little bit better. This is going to be something where there's a small area and I want to be able to control all the enemies within there, clear them extremely quickly, and I want something with a lot of recovery is mainly what I'm going to be looking to do. Something that can clear fast, does enough damage to get through them, and has enough recovery that I can take a couple of hits or take some damage and be able to survive it. So you've watched a bunch of videos, you've found a build that you're interested in. We're going to use one of mine from 3.13 as an example. So this build is a Toxic Rain Trickster. As I said, this is from 3.13. You found the video, you watched it, it looked pretty cool, it seems like something you want to do, and it ticks those boxes that you need, like maybe you wanted a boss killer, or maybe you wanted a clear build. So after you've got that, the thing that you should be looking for is something called a paste bin for a path of building. So in my videos, you're going to find that down here. You'll see that there's a community fork, you should download it and install that, and then you would grab this paste bin link right here. So we're going to copy this, we're going to open up Path of Building. This is just a generic empty new build that I made here. So you just go to here. When you load up Path of Building, you're just going to hit new. You will go to import up here at the top left, click import from paste bin, and then paste the paste bin into here. Hit import, and then you've got the actual build itself. Now, something that you should be thinking about is what all do you need for this character to work? Now, I can only really speak from my own paste bins and my own Path of Building setups, but in mine, I do have items set up, like there is budget gear here. As you can see in the budget gear, there's a bunch of just simple rares in here. There's a couple uniques, which Kintsugi isn't budget anymore, so I'm going to have to change this for the future. You can look through these items and be like, okay, well, I think that those are probably like decently easy to obtain. Like, I think I can afford Silverbow early on. I think maybe I can get a hold of Asinus Chant, but something that you can do is you can actually go to this website called PoE Ninja, and if you go here and you search up something like Asinus Chant, you can actually check to see what historically the price of this item was. So as you can see, this item was unfortunately not a budget item, even though it did end up in my budget gear. Now you can see here at the beginning of the league, this is January 17th, 18th, it went up to 208 chaos, but it did come down to about 55 after a while. So that's not too terribly, but obviously I'm going to need to move that out of my budget gear. But keep in mind, this is the kind of thing that you want to do early on. You want to think, well, really don't have a lot of time to play, so I'm only going to get to play a couple days a week. I'll probably get maybe 2 Exalt over the course of time, and that's probably all the money that I'm going to have. So you have to see if the budget gear is going to be available, and then you can start going and looking in maybe like the expensive gear or the My Gear section here, which has a little bit more expensive things, and just seeing if you're going to be able to afford that. You can go into the skills, you can see if the actual build has leveling skills, if it's going to tell you what abilities you should be using early on for leveling. If you're a much more experienced player, you might not need these, but if you are a newer player or you want abilities that you're supposed to be using early on, you should make sure that it has full abilities on what you should be doing. Another thing to think about is going to be leveling trees. In my Path of Buildings, I've actually done this a little bit better on the new builds that I've been doing, but I do have full leveling trees, so you can go in and check which points you should be putting in first, which ascendancies you should be putting in first, and just making sure that the build guide has everything that you need to know to be able to do what you gotta do. Another thing, I know a lot of people don't use the notes section in their Path of Building, but I do. I've got a bunch of frequently asked questions here among a whole bunch of extra information. So make sure that you look at all of these different things. Make sure that you see if the build is something that you're going to be capable of, if you can afford all of the items for it, if it's something that only requires level 90 to really be using, or if it's something that requires even more points. There's a bunch of builds out there that are very, very expensive, and you should know going in what the cost of that build's going to be, and if it's something that you're going to be able to do. So make sure that you learn Path of Building, make sure that you figure out how to look through all of these different portions of the skill tree, of the items, of the skills and the notes and all that kind of stuff, and do a little bit of research in that regard so you can make sure that you're prepared and know that the build that you've chosen is the right one. Now, the last thing that I do want to talk about here is that there is one last thing that you should check after you've done all of your research, after you've done everything, and that is a few days before the actual league is launched, there's going to be 2 things that come out. There's going to be a game balance manifesto for whatever patch it is, and there's also going to be patch notes. Now, in recent time, I feel that the game balance manifestos are way more important than the actual patch notes themselves. They have been telling us most things that we need to know in these manifestos. You should at least give these a glance before you make your final decision. Now, I myself will be updating all of my builds depending on what happens in these game balance patches, in everything like this, so I will keep you up to date on what that is. Thankfully, this time around, we're getting them a little bit earlier, so I'm gonna have a little bit more time to get everything together, but you should at least give these a glance, look through all the different things, and seeing if there's anything that's absolutely getting gutted. Like for example, in 3.13, Aura Sackers got destroyed, even though it's not really a League Start build. And another thing that absolutely got annihilated was the Bonk build, the Call of Steel Ground Slam build that was happening here with the Impaler Keystone and that. Those kinds of builds got obliterated, but most of the time you can tell when something like that is a little bit too far-fetched or it's a little bit outside of what GGG would want. So I suggest that you do look through these kinds of things and make sure that you see if there's anything in particular that's getting annihilated, right? So just be aware that there are sometimes nerfs that are going to make a build significantly worse. However, I implore you, stop worrying so much about patch notes and about these changes, because typically it's pretty easy to tell what GGG is going to do, and they have said themselves that they're really trying to not obliterate abilities, obliterate builds completely unless they're very, very, very on the outer edge of what's acceptable in the game. Even if a build gets like a 10 to 20% nerf, it still should be okay. I will let you know up front if a build that I had made is no longer worthwhile anymore. Ask me. Ask somebody in my Discord. They will let you know. But check through the development manifestos, check through the game balance manifesto, check through patch notes. Just make sure that there's not anything that's going to absolutely obliterate the build and make it completely worthless. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen occasionally. But like I said, most of the time, the builds are perfectly fine. And that is going to be most of what you actually need to be thinking about when you're going into choosing a build for the next league that's coming out. You really don't need to agonize over it as much as you might think. Find a build, go through the checklist that I gave you, make sure all of the things add up and everything looks okay, and if it does and it's something that looks like it's fun to you, go for it. You don't have to stick with that build forever. I know a lot of people get into this real doom and gloom feeling where it's like, my build was nerfed and I can't play literally anything else. Yes, you can. You can choose something new, you can try something else, and you can still have fun. You would be surprised how many fun and interesting builds there are out there that do a variety of different things in this game. It's not just about being the absolute most powerful build imaginable every single time. Sometimes I like starting with a build that's a little bit less powerful and ranking my way up into later in the league. It gives me kind of like, you know, a gradual increase in play style, like I slowly feel more powerful over the course of the league. That may be something that you want to try out this time as well, because at the end of the day, video games are about having fun. However you have fun, whether it be making tons of currency, bossing in the end game, clearing out some crazy high-end maps, whatever it is. You should try to focus more on having fun than worrying about what everybody else is doing. It's really, really not worth it to min-max all of the fun out of your game. So remember guys, if you have any questions, you can either find me over at Twitch at twitch.tv/bigducks. I'm probably live Monday through Friday and even more than that throughout the day. If you have a specific question, you can come ask me there. If I'm not live or you need some help from somebody else, try out my Discord, link down in the description. There are a ton of helpful community members, some people that know just as much, if not more, than I do. So make sure that you come join, be a part of the community, and I really, really hope that you have a wonderful time on your league start. I hope you're able to choose a build and find one that actually worked for you. Remember guys, if you enjoy this content, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content similar to this, and stay safe out there in ranked class. And I'll see you guys in 3.14 Ultimatum League.